Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a deep dive into a career with, well, a pretty sweet taste, wouldn't you say?
I'd say so.
We're talking about becoming an import-export manager, specifically in the world of sugar, chocolate, and all things confectionery. And we've got a whole stack of career guides, interview advice, insider perspectives, all that good stuff ready to break down.
And trust me, there's way more to it than just shipping sweets from one country to another.
Oh, I bet. It's got to be more than just logistics, right?
Absolutely. One guide we have here, the Complete Career Guide. Import-Export Manager in Sugar, Chocolate, and Sugar Confectionery even says it's about installing and maintaining procedures for cross-border business.
Okay, so maybe a little more complex than it sounds at first.
A little bit, yeah. But what's interesting is they talk about building a system, almost like you're creating this global supply chain symphony, you could call it.
Okay, I love it. A global supply chain symphony. So you're the conductor if you're the import-export manager, making sure all the pieces are working in harmony, right?
Exactly. From sourcing those beans to navigating all the international rules and regs.
So definitely not your typical 9-to-5 desk job then.
Nope, not at all. And that's where things get really interesting. We're talking potential travel opportunities here. One day you might be in Ghana meeting with cocoa bean farmers. The next you're in Switzerland collaborating with chocolatiers.
Wow, sign me up for that travel schedule. But there's got to be some challenges. They can't all be chocolate tastings, right? What kind of hurdles might someone in this role come up against?
Oh, there are definitely hurdles. Remember that symphony we were talking about? Well, imagine some of those instruments going out of tune.
Uh-oh.
This guide highlights how fast-paced everything is, juggling deadlines, and the fact that regulations are always changing.
So adaptability is key. What kind of skills do you need to really thrive in that environment, especially when we're talking about something as delicate as chocolate?
You've hit the nail on the head. It really is a blend of skills, both hard and soft skills. Of course, you need to know about trade laws, logistics, and good communication is a must. But this guide dives deeper than that. It talks about critical thinking, being able to adapt.
So it's not enough to know the rules. You have to be able to improvise when things inevitably go wrong. Can you give us an example? Like, what's a real hair-on-fire moment for an import-export manager?
Okay, picture this. You've got a massive shipment of cocoa beans, right? And it's stuck in customs because of some unexpected paperwork issue.
Oh, no.
Right? Maybe import regulations suddenly changed, or there's a labeling problem. Whatever it is, you've got to think fast. Those beans aren't going to wait.
Talk about pressure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the skills, you can handle a crisis. How do you actually move up in this industry, climb that candy-coated ladder, so to speak?
That's where this guide is really helpful, actually. It breaks down the career path really well. You might start as an import-export assistant, coordinating shipments, handling documents, that kind of thing.
Getting your feet wet.
Exactly. And from there, maybe you specialize in a specific region or even a particular product. Then, with enough experience, you could end up leading a whole team as an import-export manager, conducting that global symphony we talked about.
I love it. But let's be real. Before you're leading a team, you've got to nail that job interview. And this source does not hold back on the kinds of questions you might get.
Oh, absolutely. And these aren't your typical interview questions. They really want to know if you're passionate about this industry, how you handle curveballs, if you really get the global market.
Give us an example. What kind of question are we talking about here?
Okay, they might ask you to analyze what's happening in the chocolate industry right now, what the trends are, or maybe explain how you stay updated on all the trade regulations because they change all the time.
So they're looking for more than just a textbook answer. They want to see if you can really think on your feet.
Exactly. They want to know this isn't just another job for you. You're genuinely interested in this field.
So don't be afraid to show some personality in the interview.
Definitely not. Let your passion shine through. Talk about your love for chocolate, your fascination with global trade. That's what will make you stand out.
Now, speaking of standing out, this source keeps mentioning a tool called RoleCatcher. What's the deal with that?
Think of RoleCatcher like a secret weapon for your job search.
Ooh, a secret weapon.
Huh?
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It does more than just help you find job postings. It's like a whole career development platform specifically for these types of roles.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it helps you identify what skills you need, practice those tough interview questions we talked about, and really just gives you a leg up in the job market.
So it's like a career coach and a cheerleader all rolled into one. I like that.
Exactly. And the best part is it's tailored for import-export management in this industry, the world of sugar and confectionery.
That is pretty sweet. So we've covered the basics of the job, talked about the day-to-day, even touched on some resources to help land that dream job. But there's got to be more. What about the hidden gems of insight, the things they don't always tell you?
Oh, there definitely are. And one thing that often gets overlooked but can really make or break your success in this field is connections.
All right, well, you've piqued our interest. Stay tuned, folks, because we're about to uncover the power of networking in the world of import-export right after this quick break. So before the break, we were on the edge of our seats when you mentioned connections. Fill us in. How important is networking in import-export?
It's huge EE. In this line of work, it's not always what you know, it's who you know. In fact, one of these guides even goes as far as to call it your competitive advantage.
Which makes sense when you think about it. When you're dealing with regulations that change all the time, markets that go up and down, and yeah, let's face it, the occasional chocolate crisis.
Right. Having the right people you can call can make all the difference.
Totally. So paint us a picture. How could having a good network really come in handy for an import-export manager?
Okay, so say you've got that shipment. Maybe those cocoa beans again held up in customs because, oh, I don't know, some new regulation just popped up out of nowhere.
Happens all the time, probably.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, you could spend days, weeks even, dealing with all the paperwork, trying to figure it out. Or you could just pick up the phone, call your contact at the embassy, someone you met at a conference maybe, and they can probably help you sort it out much quicker.
That's what I'm talking about. A direct line to problem solving. So it's not just having a bunch of names in your phone. It's about really building those relationships.
100%. You want to build trust, be someone others can rely on too. It goes both ways.
Absolutely. But building a global network like that, that's got to take some serious effort.
It does, yeah, it takes time. This guide we have here actually suggests some good ways to get started, like getting involved with organizations like the International Chamber of Commerce or the World Trade Centers Association.
Those sound promising. What
Yeah.
kind of people would you meet in those organizations?
Oh, you'd be surrounded by other professionals in the import-export world. It's a great way to share knowledge, make those connections, learn from each other.
And probably attend some pretty cool events, too, I imagine. I bet trade shows are huge EE in this industry, not just for the networking, but to see what's new, what's trending.
Oh, for sure. You're right. Staying ahead of the curve is so important, especially in a fast-paced market like this.
It's like, how else would you know that, I don't know, maybe dark chocolate with orange peel is the next big thing in Japan? Got to get out there and talk to people.
Huh? You got that right. And you just touched upon another critical point. Never stop learning. This isn't a career where you can just coast once you've got the job.
Always evolving.
Exactly. Our source really emphasizes that no matter how much experience you have or what degrees you hold, there's always something new to discover in this world.
So even with a master's degree in international trade, the learning never stops. What does that look like in practice? Like, how do you stay ahead of the game?
Well, for one, you've got to keep up with those ever-changing trade laws and regulations we talked about.
Right, because those are always so simple and straightforward.
Huh, not quite. This guide actually mentions something called the Harmonized System Codes, or HS codes, which categorize every traded product.
Every single product in the world has a code.
Pretty much. And if you misinterpret even one of those codes, it can lead to massive delays, fines, you name it.
Okay, so maybe slightly more complicated than just knowing that chocolate tastes good.
Just a tad. It's a lot to keep track of, but it's part of what makes this job so challenging and rewarding, too, when you get it right.
That's for sure. So we've talked about networking, continuous learning.
Yeah.
Anything else our aspiring import-export managers should be prepared for?
Oh, there's more. We've mentioned those unexpected challenges. But this guide actually dives into specifics, things that can go wrong, especially with food products like sugar and confectionery.
Oh, do tell. Everyone loves a good cautionary tale, especially when it involves chocolate.
Okay, well, one thing to consider is that food safety and quality standards are different everywhere. What's okay in one country might be completely unacceptable in another.
Makes sense, I guess. But give us an example. What kind of things are we talking about here?
Well, take food additives, for example. The guide mentions that some European countries have really strict rules about artificial colors and flavors in their chocolate, while in other parts of the world, it's no big deal.
Oh, wow. I never even thought about that. So you're not just thinking about taste. You're navigating a whole world of regulations and what's culturally acceptable, too.
Exactly, and it goes beyond ingredients. Packaging and labeling are just as important. For instance, some countries require really specific labels for things like nuts to protect people with allergies.
So much to keep in mind.
Right. And then, of course, there's always the issue of tariffs and import restrictions. Those can change like the wind, depending on trade agreements, political situations, you name it.
So let me get this straight. Even if you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's, there's still a chance that your shipment of, say, those delicious cocoa beans could get held up at customs because some tariff suddenly changed.
That's the name of the game, unfortunately. But that's also where that deep understanding of global trade comes in and why having a strong network is so crucial.
It's like you need a crystal ball to predict the future of international trade.
Almost. But seriously, a seasoned import-export manager can often anticipate some of these changes, or at least know where to look for alternative solutions when things go sideways.
Okay, this is starting to sound a bit overwhelming, even for someone who loves chocolate as much as I do. Where do you even begin to wrap your head around all of this?
Well, our source actually offers some pretty solid advice on that front, too.
Okay, good, because I was about to swear off chocolate altogether and become a hermit. What's the secret to not just surviving, but actually thriving in this role?
Yeah.
Right? Spill the beans. What's the secret sauce? How do you go from barely surviving to totally rocking it as an import-export manager?
Well, this guide emphasizes being proactive. You can't just react to things, you have to be thinking ahead. They actually use a great analogy in here. They say, think like a chess player, always several moves ahead.
Ooh, I like that. So you're not just shipping chocolate today, you're thinking about what could impact those shipments tomorrow, next week, even next year.
Exactly. And part of that is having those strong relationships we talked about. It's one thing to network, it's another to actually nurture those connections, so that when something unexpected happens, which it inevitably will, you've got people you can reach out to.
Right, your network is your lifeline. But let's be real, even with the best planning, things can still go sideways. What then?
Well, that's where adaptability comes in. Remember that example we talked about? That shipment of cocoa beans stuck in customs because of some last-minute paperwork?
Oh yeah, that was a nail-biter.
A good import-export manager doesn't panic in that situation. They take a step back, figure out what's going on, and get creative.
I'm all about creative problem solving. Got any real-world examples of how that might play out?
Okay, imagine this. There's this sudden surge in demand for, let's say, some specific type of chocolate in a particular country.
Okay, I'm picturing it. What sparked this sudden chocolate craving?
Who knows? Maybe it was a viral video, maybe a celebrity endorsed it. The point is, suddenly everyone wants it, and your usual suppliers can't keep up.
Oh, that's not good.
Right. But you've got options. You could tell your buyers, sorry, we're out of stock, but that's bad for business. Or you could tap into your network. Maybe find a new supplier, someone who can fulfill those orders. It's all about being resourceful.
Turning a crisis into an opportunity. I love it.
Yeah.
But it's not just about putting out fires, right? There's also the side of finding new opportunities, new markets to break into. How does an import-export manager drive that kind of growth?
That's where market research comes in. You've got to know what's trending, what consumers want, and not just in your own backyard. What are people in other countries craving? Are there new markets that are ripe for the picking?
So you're not just shipping out chocolate. You're like a trend forecaster, always looking for the next big thing.
Exactly. And once you spot a potential opportunity, then it becomes about strategy. Do you introduce a current product to this new market? Do you tweak the product to better suit local tastes? These are the kinds of decisions you make every day as an import-export manager.
This is all starting to sound really dynamic, fast-paced, but I have to admit, also a tad overwhelming. How do you keep track of it all? The regulations, the logistics, the cultural differences.
That's where being organized and detail-oriented is key. Think back to that symphony analogy.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Imagine if the conductor lost track of even one instrument. The whole thing would fall apart.
True, true.
Same with this job. One missing document, one wrong code, even a small miscommunication, it can throw everything off.
So definitely not a job for those who hate paperwork then.
Well, there's a certain amount of paperwork, yes. This guide actually mentions a bunch of documents that are crucial in import-export.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
So you've got things like commercial invoices, which basically outline the deal between the buyer and the seller. And then there are bills of lading. Think of those as receipts for the goods, but also proof that they're being shipped correctly. And certificates of origin, which are important for proving where the products come from.
It's like a whole new language to learn.
Yeah.
Any advice for our listeners who might be feeling a little intimidated right now?
Embrace it. This is a field where you're constantly learning and growing. Don't be afraid to ask questions, find a mentor, and never stop reading, researching, staying up to date.
Love that. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of import-export, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
This career is about so much more than just moving things around the globe. It's about connecting cultures through trade, finding creative solutions to complex problems, and yeah, maybe enjoying some delicious chocolate along the way.
Well said. And for our listeners, whether you're just starting your career journey or you're a seasoned pro looking for a change, remember, the world of import-export is full of possibilities. Keep exploring, keep learning, and who knows, you might just find yourself conducting that global symphony of sweetness. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.